Hello, thank you for watching this video walk of the historic homes and architects of Old Town Tacoma. This walk is a partnership of the Job Carr Cabin Museum and Historic Tacoma. My name is Holly Stewart and I am the program manager at the Job Carr Cabin Museum.
Hi everybody, thanks for attending today's tour. My name is Sarah Hilsendegger and I'm a volunteer with Historic Tacoma. On today's tour, I'll be telling you about the architects and the architecture of the homes and buildings around Old Town.
We'll be your tour guides for today's history walk. And we want to thank our volunteer video recorder as well. If you'd like to learn more about or support the efforts of these two local organizations, you can visit our websites at jobcarmuseum.org and historictacoma.org. So let's get started. Although Old Town is the original urban development for the city of Tacoma, this neighborhood is not designated as a historic district. The local residents attempted to receive landmark status from the city of Tacoma in 1974, 1991, and 2011, but each time the initiative did not gain full community support. There are 8 private homes and 2 other structures, St. Peter's Church and Slavonian Hall in Old Town Tacoma, that are designated on the City of Tacoma's Historic Register. Today's tour will include 7 homes on the local register, as well as 6 homes that do not have landmark status. We'll be discussing the architectural styles, architects, and residents of these significant single-family and multifamily homes.
As Holly said, the architecture of Old Town illustrates the social and cultural aspects of this area and represents the immigrant families who contributed to the economic and ethnic diversity of Tacoma's history. The buildings in Old Town represent a variety of architectural styles, ranging from 1873 to the present. Today's tour will focus on residential structures built between 1882 and 1909. And the older homes that remain and that best represent the area as a working class community are the survivors of much larger buildings that used to be here. While Old Town is a waterfront community, you'll notice that many of the homes do not take advantage of the view towards Commencement Bay. At the time, the industrial activities along Ruston Way in the late 19th and early 20th centuries were not very picturesque. The steel Fuller Cottage, located at 2312 North 29th, was built in 1882, and at the time was a part of about 5 other houses that looked similar in this row along the street. The only remaining cottage is next door at 2310, the Yellow Home. And originally, instead of this street being called North 29th, it was called 3rd Street. This home's design is a gable front design that was popular from 1850 to 1930 and tended to follow the expansion of the railroad across the U.S. This design was ideal for narrow urban lots and is referred to as a shotgun house, which is 1-story, 1-room wide design, and it's popular in the South. And this home is only about 600 square feet. The front section of the home is very true to its original look. The rear of the home has been altered and a porch and a side door were added. Homes built prior to 1884 are rare in Tacoma and rare in the state of Washington. There are currently only 16 on the local register from 1889 or prior. The first definitive evidence of this house appears on an 1884 bird's eye panorama map of the city. The home's architect is unknown.
Built in 1882 by Janet Elder Steele Fuller, these are the oldest remaining homes in the Old Town neighborhood. Unfortunately, no residential structures from the first 17 years of the settlement remain. Janet arrived in Tacoma with her young family in 1869. She built and operated the distinguished 24-room steel hotel on what is now North 30th Street. The hotel was the first major frame building in Tacoma. The materials to build it were brought in from Seattle, since it was several months before Tacoma's first sawmill opened. It quickly became the place to stop for a delicious meal and a good night's rest between Portland and Victoria. In 1876, Janet and John Nash Fuller, the bartender at her hotel, purchased 2 lots at this location. In addition to running the hotel, they were active in local real estate, buying and trading properties in many parts of the growing city. In 1881, Johnny built 3 similar houses on the adjacent lot. And in 1882, Janet built these 2 homes that we see here. Janet and Johnny married the following year, and they continued to operate the hotel together as the Fuller until 1892. Johnny also served as a city councilman, chief of police, and he installed the first waterworks in Tacoma. These cottages served as rental homes for local workers. After Janet passed away in 1894, Johnny leased the house at 2312 to her brother, James Forrest. He was a Tacoma police officer, coal miner, and bartender as well. And James shared the small space with a string of boarders. After James moved out, the residence was home to many local fishermen. At one time, at least 5 of them called this tiny house their home. From 1937 to 1986, the occupants of this cottage were Ole Jacobsen and Elizabeth Carzano. He was a longshoreman from Norway, and she was a housekeeper from Alaska. After many years, they eventually married and shared the home until they passed away. The other 3 steel fuller cottages were demolished in the 1970s.
The next stop on our tour is the Beals Duplex, located at 2804 McCarver Street. Built in 1887, the architect and builder was Curtis Beals. Beals was a contractor who also worked in real estate and served 2 terms on the Tacoma City Council. He arrived in Tacoma from Portland in 1881. This home was constructed during a building boom in Old Town, making it likely that the duplex was meant to accommodate the fast-growing population. As we mentioned at the beginning of the tour, there are some homes that were built to not take advantage of the water view, and this is one of those homes. When it was built, the waterfront was lined with industry, so the view was not considered important. The style of the Beals Duplex is a West Coast stick style, which is a transition between Italianate style and the new Queen Anne stick and neoclassical styles of the 1890s to the early 20th century. You'll notice it has a hipped roof and a pair of matching 2-story false gabled bays. Also typical of this style is the decorative brackets framing the windows. The porch is also incorporated into the bays. Also present is the original channel wood siding. The flat-roofed 1-story addition on the south side was added in 1984, along with new windows. The roof on the addition is a mansard-style roof.
This duplex was home to many local workers and Croatian immigrants in the 20th century. One family of renters in the home was Joseph Beppo Ursic and his wife Perina Surgeon Ursic. In 1903, Beppo immigrated from Croatia to Tacoma. He met Perina while living in a boarding house near the Old Town waterfront. They were married in 1908. Before moving into this duplex in 1912, they lived next door with his cousins. For a while, Beppo worked with his cousins at the Old Town Meat Market on North 30th Street. After living here for a few years, Beppo and Perina moved to another historic home that we will visit next on today's tour. From 1928 to 1984, the house was owned by the Giron family, also of Croatian descent. Anton, the patriarch of the family, worked at the Dickman Mill on Ruston Way.
The next 4 homes that we'll be seeing on the tour were designed by Karl August Darmer. First, he designed 2 of the homes, and then the plans were used to construct 2 additional homes. Darmer is one of Tacoma's major architects with projects in the Union Depot Warehouse District, Old City Hall District, and the Stadium Seminary District. He also designed the Lodge at Point Defiance, Meeker Mansion in Puyallup, and the building that was once the People's Store on Pacific Avenue, along with multiple residents around town. He came to Tacoma in 1884, along with many other architects after a series of disastrous fires in Tacoma. While these homes were designed by Karl Darmer, they were sourced from catalogs or pattern books. The exteriors resemble a Dutch colonial-style design, while the interiors follow a Victorian home design, just on a smaller scale. On the first floor is an entry hall, side stairs, kitchen, and pantry on one side, with a dining room and living room on the other. The second floor consists of 3 bedrooms and the master at the front. A bathroom is located at the rear on the second floor. Each set of homes mirrors each other in its layout. Originally, the siding was tongue and groove, but some alterations have been made over time, including new windows.
The pink house behind me was home to the Boscovich and Karavich families from 1919 to 2004. They were both Croatian immigrants. Vladimir and Franka Karavich raised 4 children in the home. Their daughter Zori lived here for 82 years. The house has a small cellar where the families made wine each year by stomping on grapes while wearing rubber boots, even during Prohibition. The house at 2801 was purchased by Beppo and Perina Ursic in 1924. Here they raised 2 children. Beppo became a commercial fisherman and then was employed by the City of Tacoma Public Works Department for over 20 years. In addition, he was an active member of the Slavonian American Benevolent Society, serving as its president. Beppo and Perina lived here for nearly 40 years. Built in 1906, these 4 buildings served as the homes of working-class immigrants for over 80 years. The families who lived here emigrated from island towns in Croatia, and they knew each other before arriving in America. They demonstrate how the village links in their old country were important to immigrants who arrived in Tacoma, as well as the important role that Croatian immigrants played in the history of Tacoma. The house at 2721 was purchased by Kresimir and Catherine Ursich in 1949. Kresimir was one of the 4 children of Beppo and Perina, who we met at our previous stop. He was a fisherman and a boat machinist. Catherine worked for the City of Tacoma for 23 years and served on the Tacoma Civil Service Commission. She advocated for improvements to Old Town Tacoma and was active in the restoration of Slavonian Hall. Because of her service to the community, a nearby park was named in her honor in 1988. This home was owned by Nicholas and Angelica Milan from 1919 to 1949, where they raised 4 children. Angelica immigrated to America in 1906 at the age of 14. In Croatia, her widowed mother had difficulty raising 6 children. To avoid life in a convent, Angelica came to Tacoma, where her cousin and godmother owned the Radonich boarding house. To earn her keep, she baked 60 to 120 loaves of bread each day to feed the fishermen who stayed in tents behind the boarding house, as well as providing laundry and childcare services. One of the fishermen at the boarding house was Nicholas Milan. When Angelica turned 18, they were married at St. Patrick's Church just up the hill. Nicholas was also an active member of the Slavonian American Benevolent Society, serving as the secretary-treasurer at a time when the society provided death benefits and other resources to Croatian families in need.
These 3 homes were commissioned by Rolf Ahn, one of Old Tacoma's policemen. And because of the 3 homes' connections to each other, they are referred to as the 3 sisters. 2613 was built in 1907, 2615 was built in 1907, and 2619 was built in 1909. Much like the Darmer homes we just saw, the homes at 2613 and 2615 mirror each other in their layouts, or the layouts are flipped from each other. At the time, it only cost $4,500 to build both of these homes, which in today's dollars is about $125,000. And the style of these homes is 4 square. However, the home in the middle at 2615 underwent a transformation in the late 80s, which gave it a more Victorian-style exterior. The porch has been extended around both sides, and the home was extended in the back for more space. The exterior of the home at 2619 maintains the more original look. The architect of these homes is George Trost. Sometimes Trost is referred to as George Trust. He was originally from Denmark, and he was the architect of many Tacoma homes and buildings between 1900 and 1925. In 1922, he designed the Courtney Building, located at 1105 South 11th, which is currently home to the Hilltop Pawn Shop and Loans. He also designed Normanna Hall and the K Street Theater, which has been demolished.
The house at 2613 was built in 1907. One of the first residents of this home was a Swedish family. Brothers Charles and Andrew Hagberg lived in the home with their sister and elderly mother Joanna until 1914. Charles immigrated to America in 1898 at age 22. In 1903, he started the Pacific Shingle Mill down on the Ruston Way waterfront with his older brothers. Charles was the mechanical superintendent and general manager. In 1914, Charles married Annie Myron, and they moved around the corner to a home on 26th Street. In 1920, Charles sold his shares in the mill to start a lumber company in Seattle. But just 4 years later, he returned to Tacoma to start another lumber mill with his brother Andrew. Unfortunately, just 1 month later, Charles died suddenly, leaving his wife to care for their 6 small children. The house at 2615 was also built in 1907. Rolf and Jenny Ahn lived in this home for 1 year until the home at 2619 was completed. Their second home on this block was larger with a full basement and a more desirable corner lot. Rolf Ahn's family came to America from Norway in the 1880s when he was a teenager and settled near Bend, Oregon. About 1905, Rolf married Jenny Nelson, a fellow Norwegian immigrant. They moved to Tacoma soon after. Rolf served as Old Town's neighborhood police officer for 20 years, retiring in 1929. Their son Edwin attended Stadium High School and was known for being very quiet and studious.
Our next stop is 2605 North Star Street. The home that used to be located here was designed by architect Kate Lockwood Squire, who worked with Tacoma Building and Savings Association. The company helped working-class residents to borrow money to build a house. Kate was the first woman to study architecture at the Cooper Union in New York City, and she was Washington State's first professional female architect. She designed 28 middle-class homes in Tacoma in 1887 and 1888, including a large vernacular home with colonial details that was at this location, designed for Augustus and Jane Walters. In 1888, Kate left Tacoma for San Francisco to care for her ailing husband. Unfortunately, only 2 of Kate's buildings remain, and the Walters home that used to be at this site is one of the buildings that is no longer here. The Walters home had 10 rooms with large closets and halls. It was finished in natural cedar, redwood, and oak, with marble mantels. It was built at a cost of $3,700, which in today's money is about $99,000. The current home on the lot was built in 1980.
So the home that first stood on this property was built in 1888 for Augustus and Jane Walters. The Walters arrived in Tacoma in 1873 from Canada. Their first home was down the hill across the street from St. Peter's Church. In 1874, Augustus was elected to the first city council, serving alongside Job Carr. The following year, he became the mayor and the postmaster. Augustus served as the mayor of Tacoma City for 7 non-consecutive years before Old Town merged with New Tacoma, what we now call downtown. He was also in charge of the local post office for about 10 years. Jane held the position of Tacoma City treasurer for 2 years, but it was a scheme by her husband to prevent others from taking office. Jane was also known as the mother of St. Peter's Church. On the 25th anniversary of the church, she hosted a celebration for the congregation at her home. Jane's gardens were well known and flourished even after her death. She planted the English ivy that continues to try to engulf that iconic church, as well as this front yard. In the 1930s, the Walters' granddaughter Alice lived in the house when the landscaping was featured in an article for the Tacoma Times. The tall evergreen tree behind me that you can still see on the corner was also visible in the pictures from that newspaper article.
This home at 2624 North McCarver Street was built in 1903. This home is influenced by Italianate architecture, and on this home in particular it features a lightly framed porch and tall windows. This home doesn't feature the more grand features that are found in Italianate, such as decorative brackets or larger overhanging roof eaves. However, Italianate typically has a square look, and this home does feature that. Ambrose Russell and Frederick Heath are 2 of the most prominent architects in the north end of Tacoma, and they designed this home. Ambrose Russell is responsible for numerous homes, such as the Russ Mansion on I Street, as well as designing the Governor's Mansion in Olympia, the Perkins Building on A Street, Sunrise Day Lodge at Mount Rainier, and the National Guard Armory in Tacoma. He has been referred to as the Dean of Tacoma Architects. He was born in 1857 and passed away in 1938 and reportedly worked until the day he died. The other architect of this home is Frederick Heath, and he was the Tacoma School District architect from 1902 to 1920. And he's responsible for designing the Tacoma Tourist Hotel that is now known as Stadium High School. He also convinced the city to build Stadium Bowl. Additional projects include Lincoln High School, the Swiss, Paradise Inn at Mount Rainier, Toby Jones Home, and various churches including St. Patrick's and First Church of Christ the Scientist near Wright Park. Heath was a member of the Knights of the Pythias in Tacoma and designed the building that still houses the Pythias on Commerce Street. Heath also designed buildings on the University of Washington campus in Seattle. He was born in 1861 and died in 1953 at the age of 91.
The original owners of this home were another family of Canadian immigrants, Francis and Catherine Clegg. They contracted the building to be constructed for $2,200. We don't know much about the Clegg family, except that they also worked with Russell and Heath to build a second residence just a few blocks away on North 28th Street. In the 1910 census, the boarding house was home to 3 families, the Cleggs, the McFaddens, and the Coffeys. This multifamily building has been home to many local laborers, fishermen, and mill workers during the past century. The structure is indicative of Old Town's history as a working-class neighborhood for immigrants.
The final stop on our tour is located at 2802 North Carr Street, and this home is known as Siemens Rest. It was built in 1883 and became Siemens Rest in 1897. In 1975, Siemens Rest was added to the Tacoma Historic Register as a landmark. And it isn't known who designed this home. Its style is considered a vernacular style, which means it was designed based on the needs of the community using local materials. This also meant that local craftspeople were involved in the construction without the supervision of professional architects. The front of the home has had small modifications, including converting a window to a door up on the porch and adding the flat roof and crossed railing. Originally, the porch had a pitched roof with no doors above. According to letters written by sailors who visited, the home also contained a pool table and a parlor organ.
In 1897, this home was purchased by Brigitte Funemark. Brigitte was a gifted pianist who spoke French, German, English, and her native tongue Norwegian. Her husband had been a ship captain who died at sea in 1884. Brigitte moved with her 2 children to America, arriving in Tacoma in 1888. She purchased this home about 9 years later, opening it to the mariners who visited Tacoma as a safe and wholesome alternative to the rowdy saloons and gambling halls on North 30th Street. Brigitte's daughter Christine personally visited each ship that arrived in port and invited them to the mission. Each month, 50 to 500 sailors enjoyed the hospitality at Siemens Rest. The mission was open every day from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. The Funemarks offered a reading room with publications in multiple languages, games like checkers, dominoes, and a pool table, coffee and cakes, and music concerts and religious services. All costs were covered by voluntary donations. In 1899, Brigitte and Christine moved the mission to a larger home, now demolished, a few blocks away. The mission closed in 1903 because of Brigitte's failing health. In its 5 years of operation, mariners from more than 170 ships and 10 countries logged into the mission's register. Siemens Rest helped many sailors to feel as though Tacoma was a second home. They often chose to retire here because of the welcoming atmosphere created by the Funemarks. Christine later helped found the Tacoma Rescue Mission and spent her last days working at McNeil Island Penitentiary as a missionary. Thank you again for joining us today on our virtual history tour of Old Town Tacoma. We hope you enjoyed learning more about this neighborhood and the architects and architecture and residents who've lived around here. If you'd like to learn more about or make a donation to help support the Job Carr Cabin Museum and Historic Tacoma, we encourage you to visit our websites at jobcarmuseum.org and historictacoma.org. Thanks again.